Okay, we created a repository. In this, if you come to this repository, it's a private repository at this moment, but I need to make it public, or I need to give access to you all so that you can contribute, or you can just see. See, there is a tag called as private. Means GitHub is a repository where, like GitHub, there are other things like GitLab, Bitbucket, and others also there. GitHub is most famous. It is mainly for managing the code. Managing means like it's not a drive where you place all the code. For every file, every action, there will be a history of events. When you have committed, what all things you have committed, everything you can see. So if you see this commit history, each time what I did, what is the exact file structures in that day, it will show. So that's a beauty. You see what all files I added. As it's the first day, so I added everything new. But subsequently, now we modify something, you can see every change that you have mentioned. Means everything can be audited. You can go to anywhere, any back, anytime. So that's the beauty of this code management softwares. Initially, here there will be branching strategies. Branch means like by default there will be main branch. Earlier they called it as a master or like main branch, which is a default branch. Default branch means the moment anyone comes to this thing, or if they cloned from it, so which is the branch code which is coming. Branch means think like this. So in the same repository, we will have code of different versions. But which is the latest means which is needed for production means you can think like the default as a main branch. So yesterday I created one more branch called as class1. If you want to know what all things we have done in class1, you can just go to the class1. So then like you can see what it was done in class1 itself. Now for class2, I will create one more branch. Class3, one more branch. But at the end of the day, after every branch was done, I will commit and merge to the main branch. So in the main branch, you will see all the code, and in individual branches, you can see the code of that particular class, such that it would be easy for you to compare your recordings and this one. Next, if you go to any of the repository, so there are three options actually. One is like watch. Because this repository was created by me, here it is saying like watch will be 1, because I myself will be the first watcher. And if you want to know any changes which are happening and you want to know any changes reported, so then we need to click on it. If you click on it, anyone contributes this repository, you will get a notification. And similarly, fork means you can create your own repository from it. So it is not at this stage, but down the line, if you want to do the enhancement, generally in open source environment, this ecosystem happens. And similarly, if you like this repository, you can click a star. So means afterwards, sometime afterwards, if you want to re-look into what are all your favorite repositories, you can just go to your profile. I can do it. You can see your your profile, your repositories, your stars. On what all repositories I have started, I can get it. I recently started on this Spinix execution, something. So like that, I can do whatever I want. So this is how it works. Next, I will tell slowly the other features down the line when needed. Okay. Now, if I need to access the code, what I need to do in the code spaces, you see, come here in the code spaces, I need to say configure dev container. Means like, it is creating a container within it to help you get the virtual environment, so the entire VS Code environment. Okay, once again, it is asking the basic setup and others. I'm not interested in all of them. It is saying that there is one thing which is active. Just now I created, that's the reason. It is creating an environment temporarily for me. Once I close everything, it will be automatically closed. If you feel that this UI is difficult for you, you can go to the file, you can go to the preferences, And under the preferences, there is a theme, color. You can change the color. If you feel like light colors are good for you, you can change that comfortably. Next, if you are opening a terminal to execute something, say till now we have one files. So different files are there. We need to execute on it. If you want a terminal, so it is saying that do you want to install Python extension? Yes. Sir, yesterday also we installed. Why it is asking again? Because yesterday container was opened, everything was done, all changes, your code is retained, but this extension, everything was gone. That's the reason there is something called as a build setup that I will tell afterwards. So Python install done. So then how do you run the code? So if you want to run the code, if you go to the file, there is something called as terminal. If you click on the terminal, you can come to this directory and you can run on it. So it is saying, do you want to install so pylint? Yeah, I can do. It will do that. And how do you execute these files? If I do ls, because it is in Linux, we need to use ls. I need to go to this directory called as Windows. So, and in it, if I do ls, I got the files. How do I execute a program? So Python space so and so. This is how I can execute. And generally terminal will be in the down. If you feel like you cannot see the content and the terminal more clearly, you can go for here and go to the view. Under the view, there is an appearance. For appearance, I can say that panel position. If I say panel position is right, then this position will be changed. Means you have now both the things. If you don't want this style, you can say like, so control W means it will hide. So if you see here now, both the content is there side by side. If I say clear, and if I run the same script, you can see the code also and also the output also, both side by side. So don't you think it is advantageous? Means it is up to you, whichever way you want, you can customize. Hope it's clear. So till now we have done the basic setup. And if you go back to the previous thing, in the last class, we stopped at the comments. What is a comment? Comment means what? Comment is also a statement, but we don't, process it. So like any other program, how do you start a Python script? The first line should be a shebang line, which is not mandatory, but like this. And as I told, if you want to work like a shebang here in this environment, you don't know, right? So that's the reason you need to write that corresponding path. But generally in Linux environment, this shebang line is fine. And also the shebang line is needed only when you want to do / executions. In other classes, fine. Now, what is the point? In Python, so the second line would be like in doc strings, we need to write the purpose and some information. We need to work on the comment operator. Comment operator means here we have a hash. The moment hash is encountered, everything else will be commented. And in Python, there is only line comment operator. If you see the C language, JavaScript or Node.js or Go language, they have like multi-line comment operators. Whereas in Python, we have only one line comment operator. Sir, what if we want to comment multiple lines? Then you need to go to each other line and place this operator. So why so? Because Python is a interpreter-based language. Why they did also, they am telling. Python is a interpreter-based language. Sir, what is the relation between interpreter language and multi-line comment operator means? As it is interpreter-based language, each line executes one at a time. Each line executes and the output you can get. Means like simple. What are the Python code you wrote? It will go line by line execution, line by line, and it will convert to the C code because it is a C Python mostly. And then it will go to the convert to the assembly. C language will convert to the assembly, right? Assembly, and then work on the missions, right? So this is the actual flow of the conversation. So due to that, like whatever you do, it will go in this flow. Okay. Now we understood this content. I wrote the shebang line. So, and like I wrote this docstring. If I run this code, will something happen? Nothing. If I execute like Python space I so and so, it executed but no output. If I go back and if I write like hello world, I told like, these doc strings are designed for creating documentation, which I tell afterwards. But if I write a Python print statement within these doc strings, will it execute? No. But if you write the same statement outside this comments, so outside this doc strings, if I write, then you can notice. And similarly, if I write like one more statement, but this time before the statement, I placed a hash. By the color itself, we can understand something. So it is becoming everything is green. It means like it is commented. So I told comment operator means it is a line by line execution. If there is a comment in a line, it will affect only that line. So as it is at the starting, the entire line was commented. That's the reason you can see only one. So hello world 2 is there. Next. So what if you have your comment operator within some way in middle? Means what if you have your comment operator like this? You see, I have this line as a comment, right? Means the entire line is treated as a comment. Means within the comment, I can write a valid Python statement or like any comment also I can write. Basically, comment operator is designed for commenting. So, sir, in which case we need to go for documentation strings and in which case we need to go for comment means it's a very, very valid thing. Any developer thinks. Whatever you want to document from this code, you write in doc strings. Whatever you need to understand when reading the code, so just like a small things that you write as a comment. Okay. Now you see in this example, I have a hash, which is a comment operator between the string, between the quotes I have. The moment it is between the quotes, it is no more treated as an operator. It is treated as an ordinary character. Even you see the sep also I have. So here also the same thing happening in the same fashion. So if I go for one more use case, if I have something like this, I have some valid statements, but after that I have a hash, and after that I have some anything garbage. You know, this is also a comment operator. Sometimes you want to comment the entire lines, sometimes you want to comment only half of the things. But every time the moment hash is encountered, everything right side of it in that line is getting commented. Hope you understood what I'm trying to say. So similarly, what if I write this same comment operator slightly outside? Means if I do like this, now can you tell me, will it throw any error or it will give some output to me?
Error.
Why? What could be the error?
Because it is outside of that string.
It is outside of the string. Generally, if it is outside of the string, it should not be a problem. If
But
the hash is
inside
like
the
this,
bracket.
exactly. Here, if it is outside the string, it shouldn't be a problem. But the problem is that if the same hash is inside, then what happens? It will comment, but there is a open brace. This brace expects a corresponding closed braces. As that corresponding closed braces is not there, it will throw a syntax error. Hope it's clear. So means what is the purpose of comment? In which cases how it will get? And also one more interesting thing I will tell is that we can have like a comment operation with multiple things as a comment, and also like there is one shortcut. So generally every line I cannot go and make a comment. That's the reason. So there is a common shortcut called as control plus slash. Not just in Python or not just in VS Code. Most of the editors, most of the IDEs support it. No matter which language you work. So these days every editor is supporting it. If I want to comment something or uncomment something, you can use this. Generally, in interpreter-based languages, you need to go to each of the line and comment. Say I have these entire lines, I want to comment it. How do you comment? I select those lines, I do a control slash. If I want to uncomment, again control slash. So select and do control slash for both commenting and uncommenting. At the same time, so there will be one more thing called as a some people will write like this. There is something like this, you know. But I would say for commenting, this is not a good idea. So most of the people, in my view, wherever whomever I saw, if they want to comment like multiple lines, what they do, they write like this in these doc strings. Triple quotes content is called as doc strings basically. In Python, see here, so you are getting some warning saying that statement has no effect. See, pylint is something it is saying. Means code quality, it will tell pylint. So whereas here it is not saying so. It is saying that statement has no effect. And these are called as doc strings. There is a purpose for it. Doc string should be placed at the starting of the code or within a function or within a class, for there is a purpose. Means doc strings are for documentation, comment is for human beings to understand, means who are reading the code. So that's why, so be careful not to use all these things at different points. You need to know when to use what. That's the point. At the same time, after comments, so next we will see is about the keywords. In the same line, what is a keyword? Keyword means any word which is defined within the language is called as the keyword. Every language, the moment it involved, it will have some keywords. If you see in Python 3, as of now, we have 35 keywords. Means these words have some meaning in Python. As a language, these have some meaning in this Python. So then like how do we understand this concept of a keyword and what is a identifier? That's the next thing that I will tell. Generally, as in a language, when you're working, you hear about these jargons commonly. Variable means anything. In that, like keyword means the variables which are defined within the language are called as keywords. Means they have some meaning. You see the true, false, or like import, none, lambda. So all these things, these are all built-in keywords. They have some meaning. Whereas identifier means whatever user defines. That kind of things are called as user-defined variables. Now we understood what is a keyword, means there were a lot of list of keywords, and we need to work on identifiers. To understand it in one shot, let me go for a good example. Okay, coming to the case of identifiers. As you know till now that there will be two types of variables. Keywords means the words which are defined within the language, and identifiers means user defined things. If you want to know a very simple example for it, let me give you a simple example like this. I think with this you will understand what is a keyword. I'm not telling anything here. In this example, if you focus, did you see that I defined some function? We are not into functions at this moment, but I'm just telling. And I'm asking wishes. At the same time, it doesn't mean that we should write everything in English only. We can write in our own languages. If you see, I have written in Telugu. If you don't know Telugu also, fine, it doesn't matter. But hope you can understand certain things which are in English, right? Which are not changed. Did you understand? So this print, I didn't change. This def, I didn't change. This format, I didn't change. But all the others I changed. Sir, will this code work? Yes, of course. If I say clear and Python K identifiers, did you notice? Of course, this VS Code is not printing these characters properly, but in a console it can be better properly displayed. But did you see that what happening? With this, you can understand that there are certain things which are like identifiers. Identifiers means human beings, what are we write? Means as a user. These are all identifiers. What all things which are not same every time? Those are see here def. This is called as a keyword. And also print is like a function, built-in function I told, right? So these things doesn't change. With this, did you get some idea about what is a keyword and other identifier? Hope it's clear. Now, if I go in detail, like what are all the list of keywords and what are all the things that I can do? So they created one module for it. Basically, in Python, if you want to work on anything like a module, maybe like I'll write one more program instead of writing like this. I'll make it as a keyword itself. You know, right? If I change any variable, okay. So if I want to execute the same thing, Python. So j keywords dot py. So now I want to create one more called as identifiers where I want to work on it. If I do here identifiers, again I want to tell here. So I want to introduce new thing for you. Till now we didn't work on modules. In the demo I showed you something called as a so one module. Like that there is one more module called as keyword. Like this, how many modules are there, sir? There are many modules. This is not the stage for you to explain that, but understand that this is one module. Libraries are called as modules in Python, and if you want to use them, first we need to load. Did you see I wrote a comment stating that loading a module means whoever comes to this code, they can understand it. But do you think that this is needed for documentation? No. That's the reason I marked it as a comment only. I think with this you can understand, right, what's happening. And I want to print them. So what it did, I used it and I printed it. So clear and Python. So it's J identifiers. If I do identifiers, you can understand. You can see these are all the identifiers. Earlier I showed in a text format, in an ordinary text format, what are all the identifiers, right? So keywords. The same thing I'm showing here to you. So this is a list of all the things. And if you want to print them such that, whenever I want to read the code, I just want to see them. So instead of like this, then I can write them and I can comment. Because if I write directly, so it will execute. If I just want to visualize whenever I'm reading the code, I wrote like a comment. So this is also one use case of a comment. And similarly, if I say like print, print is a keyword, right? Print, true is a keyword. If I execute it, it will say true because true is a keyword. Fine. Whereas if I say the same print of small true, Python is a case sensitive language. If I define the same thing like a true, then it throws an error saying that, hey, this is gonna be a name error. So do you mean something else? So I commented it. So now you understood, right? So how things are working. So till now you understood. Now, what is an identifier? You define any variable with some value. I defined a variable called as my value is equal to something, which is a string, which is an identifier. If I execute it, it will print it. Okay, printing is one option, but whether you're creating or not, that's up to you. Now, so the same thing, whatever I created, can I assign to a true? In Python 2, 2.6, it used to do. Then, like many one told, like it should not be done. That's why they made it like an exception now. Now, did you see an error here? Syntax error. Why the syntax error? Because you cannot assign a value to these keywords. So these keywords have some meaning. We can use them, but we cannot assign values to them. Hope you understood. So, and if you want to think something is a keyword or not, you can also use a built-in function like this. Of course, you don't use in a daily basis. When you are learning only in the initial days, you can try this. This module has these functionalities. Like that, Python became famous because of these modules. For everything, literally, you ask, there is a module. So it is saying like true or false based upon this. Is true a keyword? Yes, that's why true. Small true, false. My value is false. Is false. So like that, you give anything, it will tell whether it is a keyword or not. Now, coming to the case of a keyword, when you're creating a keyword, you just created a random keyword, that's it. But in general, there were some rules. In fact, every language comes with these kind of rules when creating the identifiers. Identifier or user-defined variable, whatever you call. So identifiers are the user-defined variables, and whenever you want to create, you need to follow three rules. Rule number one, keywords, whatever you have seen the predefined words, that should not be used as an identifiers. That's the thumb rule one. So due to that, right, if I try something like this, see here, true. True is a keyword, right? So that's the reason when I'm trying to assign a value, it is throwing an error to me. Similarly, if I use another example like a none, say instead of this, if I comment it and go with the none, none is also built-in keyword, right? If I assign that, it will throw an error. Okay, that's one thing. So rule number one, keyword should not be used as an identifiers. You cannot define them. And also, pip8 is a one guideline actually. Pip8, what it is, it one of the rule it is saying guideline is saying don't create identifiers which are similar to keywords. Means you understood that capital TRUE it is not allowing. So can I create like small TRUE? Capital NONE is not taking. Can I take small NONE? You can define actually, but so what it is saying? So it is not a best practice. We should not do like that. If you really want to do, and you need a value which is giving a similar meaning, so why can't you create like a true value or a none result? You can do, right. It's up to you. So it's a best practice. Rule number one is that you should not use like a keywords or anything similar to them. If you want to use, you can change to your own names. And the rule number two is that the first character should be a alphabet or an underscore. From second character onwards, you can have numbers also. Means, as a rule number one, if I take like, name is equal to Priyanka. So, it doesn't matter what you have at the value. Okay. The focus is only at the variable name. In the variable name, did you see that it is starting with an alphabet or a number? Alphabet, right? So it is work. And similarly, if I say like, so name of student, I have underscore within it. That's also fine. Or I can have the, uh, you know, you know, uh, first name, or I can have uh, something like, student one is equal to the same thing, Priyanka. And similarly, if I have this one, so what is this class? We have like, class 02 A or 1 Python in Python comment operations. Something I wrote. And it doesn't mean that every time you should have something like this. Or similarly, I can say like first child is equal to say Satvik. You can have like multiple underscores also. And also, apart from this, you can also start with it underscores also. Means like, but here, one thing we need to understand is that if you start the same thing with some value, means the same name which I gave, if the same name, okay, first of all, if I execute it, it will work. As I didn't print it, nothing is happening. So this, what is this highlighting means we are not using them, confronting to some, if something is constant, we are not using. They say that we should use the capital case. The reason for this and highlighting is that what it is saying, to value doesn't confront to uppercase naming. Means like, hey, if you feel like something is a constant, it should be written in capital letters. So I have written in capital letters, right? In any code, if you have some constants which will not change, you define like this. Python don't have something like a constant data type, like in Go language or Java or something. Means any value can be changed anytime, anyway. A lot of freedom is there. That's the point. But this is a best practice whenever you have a constants to write like this. But at the outset, if I do the same things in a slightly different way, means like if I take the same thing and if I gonna start with a dollar, okay, if I start with a dollar, so it doesn't work, it throws a syntax error. So like that, so I cannot go for other kinds of options like this. If I go with any other things, so be it like a dollars or like if I start with having some underscores within it, means like if I have so name of student, I cannot do something like this. The same Priyanka, if I can do also, but as it is there with an underscore, hyphens are not accepted. And similarly, you cannot have like a space also. Means so you cannot have something like this. Name of person. So it don't know like what to do with that. That is also one kind of error. Or like if I say similarly we told like the first name, right? If I say the same, so first underscore name is equal to say Priyanka. Why I'm giving the same name every time? Because you need to focus on the variable. If I do like this also, it's gonna throw error. So all these things will lead to the same syntax errors. Hope you understood. These are all syntax errors. So see what is saying? Invalid decimal literal in the starting. So in the previously some other, like you cannot have valid. These are all syntax errors. But at the outset, we can also do the same thing in a slightly different way. Means you can write something like this. You can start with an underscore, two underscores, three underscores, 10 underscores, any numbers of underscores also you can have. This is not a invalid thing because as per the rules, what I told, the first character can be alphabet or an underscore. Second character onwards, numbers also can be there. So as the first character is an underscore, this works perfectly. But in Python, when you go to the oops, you will understand a concept called as name mangling. Name mangling means in Python we have like public, private, and protected variables. What is their usage? What is the purpose? I will tell when you go to oops. But we have a convention that we use a single underscore for protected and two underscores for private. So that's the reason at this juncture, don't use underscore at the starting. But in other cases, you can use. Okay. And also remember that some of the things which have underscores on both sides have some built-in meaning. Not everything will have like that, but there are some things like file, name, dog, dict. So these are some meaning is there. Slowly you will understand when you go to that particular place. But the most common among is that name and the file. These will tell the metadata about the file which are you executing. The moment I said name, it is giving like underscore underscore main. What is this underscore underscore main? When you go to functions execution, I will tell that. And similarly, when I'm asking about the file, it is giving the file name which I'm executing. So these two will give the metadata about the file. Like that, there are certain things which have some meaning. And it doesn't mean like, if I give anything, it will be getting a value. If I take something like, say Pavitra, I wrote. And if I execute like this, did you see it is throwing an error? Means it is treating like an ordinary variable. What I'm trying to say, within this ambit of underscores in the starting and underscores in the ending, there are certain variables which have some meaning. Just I came to the context, that's the reason I'm explaining. But down the line, we will learn more about it. Now, hope you understood the entire game of how to create a variables, identifiers, and others. And the last case in this particular identifiers convention is that, okay, we created an identifiers. Okay, if I say, okay, in this identifier, KL, if I go to the L, I want to work on something called as identifier casing. Identifier casing means what? Generally, there is a lot of quarrel in the developer community whether to use a variable with an underscore case or a snake case. Every language comes with some way or the other to help you understand these things. There is one such IEEE article which will tell the beauty of why people need to go for one case compared to the other. It's a very good, beautiful article. Just walk through it when you free time. So when reading the code, whether camel case is good or underscore case is good, based upon these conclusions or something else, they came up with some thoughts. And before even understanding what are those conclusions, let's say what is this casings and how it can help us. First and foremost, to understand this, if I define a variable called as animal, animal is a dog. Python is a case sensitive language. So due to that, if I write anything slightly different also, it will be very different. I defined as an animal. So now if I can ask the same thing as an animal, will I get an output? No, because the exact variables you are used, exact case we need to use like that. As it didn't use like that, it is throwing an error. Next, if I define animals like, next, like animal is equal to pig, animal is equal to camel. The same word called as animal is used, but different ways are used, right? That's the reason whenever I'm calling in that way, that particular thing is happening. So due to this, so with the same name, we can create multiple things. But of course, that's not a good practice. So you only will be confused down the line. So don't do like that, but be aware of this kind of scenario. Okay, now you understood the case sensitivity point. Now the next point is in terms of the casing, which I told in the starting. So the casing means like generally when you're writing any variable, you write to give a meaningful value such that when you're reading the code should be readable. You cannot say like, number one is equal to 10 or like, a result equal to something. It should be a meaningful thing such that when you read the code, it's easy. In the process of when you are writing a variable, which gives a very meaningful thing, you will have more than one words. So in this process, if you join all of them with an underscore, that is called as snake case or underscore. Snake because like how snake goes. So like that. Employee salary, cost of mango, selling price of apples. If I just say selling price or like SP, will you understand? As we have written like selling price of apples, you can understand that this is something related to apples selling price. Output of thermal sensors, number of current processes. So don't you see, by seeing at the variable itself, you understood the context. Similarly, the same thing can also be expressed in a different case called as camel case. Hope you remember camel will have a back, right? Camel back. How the slump will go like that for every variable. So what we are doing, when you have more than one word, when you're joining all of them, so the first character of every word will be capital case. So output of thermal sensors. So employee salary. So cost of mangoes. How it's happening? So, but now coming to the conclusions. So shall I go with camel case or snake case means? Python pip8 is Python style guide tells that for the class names, down the line we'll create classes. For that use class camel cases. But for all other identifiers, be it the function names, variable names, anything, use snake case only. So that is what Python recommends. Hope it's clear for you. Now, hope you understood, right? In what is this doctrines and how it is happening, or what is this pip8 and how it is helping. These are all recommendations. So you have defined a variable like this. Did it throw any error? No, but it's a best practice for your benefit only. Next, one last statement is about the multiple statements. Means in Python, so if you have a big statement, so we can write the big statement in multiple lines to help yourself. Means, let me write like this. If you have a big statement, say like I have a small example saying like sum of values equal to like this. Okay, it's a small statement. It will execute. It's not a big deal. If I say execute, so Python, so yum so and so, it will execute it. Okay, clear and Python yum so and so. I got the value. This is fine, good. But in real time, sometimes the values going to be big also. Means I'm focusing on the value. Observe here. Sometimes your statements can be like very big. Hope you can understand, right? It's going very big enough. So how big means like it can be very big enough. So if I execute now, it will execute. The problem is not that. But if I assume like people who are seeing from a smaller screen. So earlier there used to face a issue. You remember earlier we used to have CRTs, CRT monitors. So people used to slide left and right to understand the code. To avoid this problem, what they say that people told that, hey, you should not have more than 79 characters in line. In a given line, you should not exceed more than 79 lines, such that people will not, move left and right to understand the code. So it is a best practice. Then, sir, what if the line is more than that? Generally, it happens. In that case, you use a character called as a line continuation operator and you write in the next line. Did you see? This is a division operator and a reverse of it is called as a line continuation operator. This is called as a line continuation operator. If you have a statement which is beyond the 79 characters, sir, it doesn't mean that exactly we should show 79 and do. You can take a reasonable approximation and do it. Of course, there were some softwares, so tools which can help to reconfigure also, but it's a general practice. You take some level, average you will understand when you're coding. Did you see now it worked? If you don't write this one, this line condition operator, then it's gonna throw in error because you don't. It will treat Python is a line, line by line execution, right? Interpreter. So it will compute this line exactly, but you don't know the next line. But next line asks who am I? Who am I related to? So the moment you give this line comparison operator, you are telling to Python interpreter that, hey, don't process this line individually. Consider the next line also along with you when you're working. So in that way, when you do, so things will be easy. In the same fashion, if I go for like multiple lines, I can do the same thing. If I have like multiple lines. So for every line, I need to go and place a slash. That's it. Of course, I'm giving a small example, but like at the end of the line, you should not give. The last line. If I execute now, it's gonna work. So they told that in Python, there were like three kinds of braces. So you told like, if there is one or two lines of multiple line characters, you can write as line continuation operator. But in Python, there were some braces called as parentheses. They told like, when you have multiple lines, instead of you writing this in multiple lines, you can do a better job by just placing a brace. If you write a brace, of course, you need not write anything else. If you write a brace, see now, the output is coming. The beauty of this brace is that once you praise a brace, you need not write this line continuation operator anymore. You can go for any much big, it doesn't matter. So it will take care of. You see now, it's working, right? So that's the advantage of going for these braces. So with braces, you can have like any number of lines. At the same time, so as I told about this braces concept, some people asked me in previous interviews, classes that, sir, can we use the other braces also? In fact, we should not use those braces. There is a reason for that. Every brace in Python has some meaning. This parenthesis we can use for like multi-lines. But if you want to check that, and if I try using those other two braces, like the square braces, instead of parentheses, if I use a square brace, you can notice that the output will come in the braces. In Python, this brace means that it is a list. Till now, you don't know what is this data structure, but just I'm telling you that if you use any brace, every brace has an importance. If I use like this flower braces, you know, so this is called as a set. You don't know that also, but just be aware that. So what is this concept of multi-line strings? In which case we need to use? What is the pipette saying as a best practice? How we need to adapt to? Hope you understood all these things clearly. And the last thing in this chapter is about the semicolon operator. So I think like many people don't even know that there's an operator like this. Semicolon operator. What is the semicolon operator? Till now, if you remember, we used an operator called as comma, which is a logic separator operator. Hope you remember. So logic separator operator. When you have a typical print statement, don't you see that when you have multiple things, you just separate it by a comma? If you have like you don't have a comma, then what will happen? So let me do that. If I say like hello, say world is there. If I execute like this, and if I say print n, if I execute, okay, you see both the words got concatenated and helped you. Because like both are strings, it's fine. Whether you place a comma or not, it will work properly because both are strings. But if you have like one of them is a number, then what will happen? If I execute with comma, it works perfectly. But instead of comma, if you don't have a comma, then what will happen? This is the same thing. So don't you think it's throwing an error? Now, did you understand what is the concept of comma? How much it is playing crucial role? So every operator has its importance. So due to this, like if you have like multiple values also, so it can work. Say like the same hello, uh, print of hello, I can root. And like what are the number I have? Say 2, 1, 3, 1 something, 2 something. And after that I can have a values, I can have an expression. You do whatever you want, but each one is separate. So that is the beauty of a logic separator, which is a comma. So inherently we are using a lot of time. Now, similarly, like that, there is another operator called a semicolon operator. Semicolon operator. So it is a logic separator, whereas the semicolon is a statement separator. To understand its usage, let me take an example. In method 1, I am taking two variables, number 1 is equal to 100, number 2 is equal to 100, and I am taking a sum of both of them, and I am printing the result. You got sum of the values is something? Good. Maybe like if you want separately, you can write a print empty print such that you will get one space. You see, clearly we can visualize. The same statement I can also do in method 2. In method 2, I can so using the semicolon operator. How I'm doing is I'm taking the same statements. I'm doing like this. And what I'm doing, I'm placing a semicolon at the end, placing a semicolon at the end, placing a semicolon at the end. So what I did, logically I didn't do anything in terms of placement only, fine. But you may ask me, sir, are you crazy to do like this? What is the point of doing all in one line? Though it executes also, what is the purpose, right? So you may ask me this question. See, generally, this is not used right now, but earlier people used to use it a lot. So now I will explain you the concept of how Python evolved like a scripting language. You know, uh, uh, so how it actually works, I will tell the short story. When it is being used means in earlier versions of Python, means Python version 1, initially when it came. So what are the Python code that you want to execute? That you need to pass like this in codes. Python -c is an option. Generally, you don't know till now you just do Python and execute. If I do Python space file name, the script will execute. If I just do Python, it will go to interactive mode. Whereas if I just do Python -h, you will get a list of all options along with that. There are many options which you don't understand at this moment. One such option is about the -c. -c is a command. It expects the content to be like a string. So if I say Python -c print hello world, means whatever my content, Python code should be like a string. Within that only I need to write. It executed. Similarly, if I want to execute whatever I am doing right now also, the entire content, whatever I have, I need to place in a comment. So actually, yeah. So the whatever the content I have, I need to place within a quotes. As I have so out double quotes outside, I placed a single quotes inside, such that I will not get in conflict. I could took the entire string and I'm pasting here. Did you get the output? But sir, why this much struggle? Means in the initial version, when Python came in the evolution, they didn't even think of having an interpreter. So means like the Python code, like in a separate .py file, etc. So they created like this, means like they created like a command line utility. Whatever you write it in codes, and it will execute in the backend. So that is the reason Python is mostly called as scripting language. Now I will tell. So these days, what's happening? If you see the traditional scripting languages like Batch, Shell script, these are all scripting languages. General purpose programming language means C language, C++, Java. These are general purpose. Why Python is called a scripting language? So Python is called both of them now. The reason I'm telling. Earlier, as it is mainly used for these terminal-based executions, this batch script, so batch, shell script, all these things are so terminal-based execution scripts. Means they are for like command line things. If you take the example of bash, write like ls. This is one of the command. So so you write like ping. That is one of the command. So you write like something like a pwd. So that is one command. These are all commands, right? Shell command. Here is one command. Like that, these there were some languages created like this command tools. Their purpose is to serve like small things. There in the batch scripts and others, we cannot write a classes, functions, etc. So that is the I'm what are the definition I'm saying is 10 years back, 10, 20 years back. So and programming language means which have a big code. We can write like classes, functions, and everything structured for a purpose. So, but now, over a period of time, Python 2 came, Python 3 came. So they introduced a lot of concepts. So it is not no more like a ordinary scripting language. We can use like a general purpose programming language. That's the reason any time when you go any code, they still say like like a scripting language, bath language like that. So by now the conclusion that I want to draw is that Python is both a scripting language and also a general purpose programming language. So hope you understood one more statement which I wrote. So earlier I told right all these things. Python is a strictly typed language. Python is a general purpose scripting and so all these languages. I'm giving all kinds of emphasis for Python as a language. So any doubt till now in this content? Okay. Let me introduce to the so next chapter and we can stop there. How do you create a new folder? So I want to go to the next chapter. So for that, there are two things. If you want to create a file, this one. If you want to create a folder, this option. If I want to create a new folder, say 02 basics I want to create. Within that, also I want to create a folder. Say like 01 arithmetic operations I want to create. You see, when a folder has only one subfolder, it will show like this. Don't worry. If you write like two folders, observe where I'm writing. If I select this one and if I create, the folder will be created under it. If I select the first one, means the two basics, and if I create it, it will be under it. So be careful where you are creating. If I do like do string operations, so now it is showing two of them as there were two folders. So that's how it's gonna work. Now, under this arithmetic operations, if I want to create something, so till now we worked on different kinds of operations and all the things. We worked on a script .py file. But for the first time, I want to work on something different. So you click this one for creating a file. I create arithmetic operations. Till now we create .py file. Instead of .py, I create something called as IPYNB. IPYNB. What is this called? This is called as a Jupyter Notebook or IPython Notebook. Jupyter Notebook or IPython Notebook. So what is this purpose? Same like your code, you can write in an interactive mode. So generally in interactive mode, what happens? Whatever you write, when you close the shell, you cannot see them afterwards. Whereas in this case, we can see that. If you see here, first and foremost, the moment you created a file comes, you need to select the kernel. If I select Python environment, whichever is the current environment, I am giving it. So it took that environment. From now, I can process anything. I can tell like here, there are two types of things which can happen. There are two types of shells. One is a code prompt and markdown. Means here every block is called as a cell. So by default it is a Python codes here, Python code shell. If you want it to be deleted, you can delete it. And if you want to create a markdown, I can create like that. What do you mean by markdown means for any of the comment operations and others? So if I want to write something, I can just write it. In markdown, actually, if you want like a heading, you need to write a hash followed by a space. If you write like two hashes, it means a small heading. So three hashes, further small heading like that. Once you wrote whatever you want, you need to do a shift enter. So you can go to each of the cell and run, or simply you can do shift enter. As I did like a two hashes, I got this much. If I do like a one hash, you see the heading gonna be other big. So this is a typical markdown. You will understand in a couple of days. It's not that difficult. Within that, I want to tell that in Python, in integers, there are totally five types of in integer family. I'm saying family means so everyone is different, but they have some relation, right? The reason why I'm telling a family, you will understand down the line. In integer family, I want to work and tell that there is a int, there is no more long. In Python 2, there is to be a long. Over a period of time, if the value is very large enough, there is to store in a long value. But now it is no more there. Then next there is a float. So float is for like floating point values. Next there is a complex and boolean. Okay, complex we can understand it's an integer. Sir, why you used bool as also an integer? I will tell you afterwards. Boolean means true or false, but still it is an integer. I will tell you afterwards. Now, if you want to write a code, you need to create a code block. So in this code block, you say, I want to work on writing something. Say the same like what you write till now in a Python script. Here also we can write, but you don't need to write a Python code, execute it separately. So you can create it and see the output immediately. In this particular case, I wrote a comment saying that it is an assignment operator. Yes. So there are two values which are integers. That is also fine. And if I want to assign, create another variable called as a number 3, I can create, which was created. Now totally there are three numbers. Similarly, can I use the syntax like this? Number 3 is equal to so and so. I cannot do like this, right? It will throw an error because assignment operator expect the left side value should be a variable only. So the right side one can be a variable or a value. Means you can assign directly from or indirectly from a variable you can assign. But left side should be every time a variable. That's the reason. Now, did you see if you run the same thing in a ordinary Python script, every time we need to run, right? Every time I change, I need to run. So here, each cell wise, everything is separate. Okay, I executed the above three statements. Now, can I execute those values here? Yes, of course. Whatever you placed in this IPython notebook, Jupyter notebook, everything you can execute. I made use of what are the variables I have till now here. You see, there are three variables: number 1, number 2, number 3. And I'm asking each of the values and their data types. So it is clear, right? Hope you understood how I created a variable and used it. Now, if I want to do the addition, first, if I want to do addition means like I can take two variables. which are already defined, and I'm doing. As they were both integers, and if I add also, I'll get an integer. This is a typical typecasting rule. If one of them is float, the result will be float. But as both are integers, the result is also an integer. But if I want to create some kind of floating point values, I can create the floating point values also. You see now here, in this case, I created a floating point value and I'm making a print statement. Again, I updated, again a print, again updated, again print. Means three separate things, right? Same like a Python code, it will execute here also. Means it's same Python only, but it will be persistent. Like an interactive mode, how you work. Mainly when you go to data engineering or data science or machine learning, we use this Jupyter notebooks a lot. So these Jupyter notebooks not just pertain to Python itself. Nowadays, other languages are also slowly coming to this. So JavaScript also I can show you something as we can practice everything here. And some other languages are also coming into this for that. Okay, now coming to the previous typecasting thing, what I told. If I have two integers, if I add them, the result will be an integer only. So similarly, if one of them is a floating point value, when you add them, the result will be a floating point value. This is called as a type conversion. So a rule, that's it. And this is a common sense. Most of the people right? And one good interview question so to ask you is that you may be surprised and confused. What is the largest number that can be computed in Python or processed in Python? I wrote a very big number, right? Can I go beyond this number? Generally every language will have a limit. C also has some limit. Java also has some limit. But Python, does it have any limit? So this is a very good question. So you just think of it. So in fact, you can try with different numbers. Python doesn't make any difference because Python don't work directly on the things, right? It will not convert directly. What are the code you gave that it will convert to the C language. Then during the conversion, it will try to use the corresponding data types. But you may ask me, sir, every data type has some limit, right? Even integer also will have a limit. Then how come it is storing that much large? Because Python manages to use everything in the heap space. So a simple story for you to understand is that in your computer, there is a RAM. RAM, did you remember what is a RAM? Hard disk. Hard disk is your permanent storage, where RAM will be like 8 GB or 16 GB like that. So RAM is too costly. Means RAM is the one which is processing your data in real time. Whenever you are running any Python code, this RAM will execute that. Within the RAM, we will have private spaces, we say. That is called as private heap. So in Python, so actually this heap will be more based upon the your system. So to answer your question, what is the largest number which can be stored in Python? It depends upon the mission. If my mission has a bigger capability, so means has a larger RAM, larger heap size will be there. Obviously, I can store a large number. So there is no limit in language. So I think this is one statement which will be really, confusing you. But this is how it works. Till now, every language has a limit based upon the language. Here, Python don't give any limit to you. It is a mission which is giving to you. In the same lines, for the smallest number also, the same point happens. For storing a smallest number also, it really takes a lot of memory. Right? So even if you want to work for a furthermore smaller values, so there is something called as a decimal module. We can use the decimal and fraction modules to use it. Say if you want to work with like very small values, there is something called as decimal import decimal. So we can use this decimal to do it. Means like number 6 is there. So let me say like number 7 is equal to, so decimal of if I'm wrong, sorry, it will be like this, I guess, 0.0001, so it's something. Let me print this number 7. You see, you got the number. Generally, if you have a bigger number, if you have an ordinary number, it will not retain the order. So just to show you, if I create a code block here, if the same number I am taking and I am trying to assign to a number called as number 7 is equal to something, and if I'm asking to print it, so beyond some values, it will not retain it. If I go beyond some values, it will not retain it. What it is trying to do? It is giving only till 16 digits. But if I go for this decimal, even if you have a bigger number also, it will retain the value. So that's the one. And similarly, there is one more thing called as fractional. So though like, I'm going out of bounds, there is one more thing called as fractions, import fraction. So if you want to store something like a fraction, we can use it. Generally, one thing I want to say, like, number 8. Number is equal to, say, 10 by 3 is there. If I say 10, what will happen? You will get 3.333. But in fact, it is not stopping here. Like real math, right? It will go for 3.333 infinite times, right? But if you want to retain that fraction, so we can use this fraction things. So like, you view 10 by 3. And if I ask like 10, 8, did you see it is showing like this? It's a big number to show, but it is retaining the most, accurate values. So that's the reason. So based upon the purpose, you can go. I don't think for a typical machine learning or web developments or data science, you need it. Some specific use cases will be there, scientific applications, there you can use it. So that's how it works. Lastly, if you do like any arithmetic operations, till now, if you do any arithmetic operations, what's going to happen? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It will work. So there is nothing different. And one thing you need to note in Python is that division. Division is like very unique in Python. Why it is unique? Because in Python 2, that used to be very difficult. So I used to explain people to understand how it works. But in Python 2, 3, it is very easy. It is working typically like a ordinary division only. But one thing is that whether you need or not, you will get floating point result every time. Generally perfect division, 10 by 2 means what? You should get 5. Perfect division. But even then you get 5.0. So 10 by 5, perfect division. But even then you get 2.0. 10 by 3, it is not perfect division. In that case also you get 3.3. Now hope you understood what is happening. As I told this one stop, there is one last command here you need to understand. Generally, how you do a division operation. So if I can show like in this, instead of a code block, I use like a markdown to help you understand. In markdown, actually, if you want to show something like a block, we use these 3 tick marks. Tick mark means like below the escape key, it will be there. Hope you remember. So you have worked on the division, right? You will do division like this only. So 10 by 3 means like what? 3 threes are 9. So one reminder. Dot means like 1. You get like this. So if you want like that, and similarly, if I say individually, division and divisor means instead of this dot, if you don't place the dot, you don't get a value. Then you will get the quotient and remainder. So if you want that kind of scenario in Python, we can rely on the another 2 operators. The 2 operators are like, so ampersand and this one. There are 2 operators called as a slash. This is called as floor division or quotient. And then one is remainder. If you want both of them together, there is a modulo operator. So we can stop here and see tomorrow.